So good morning, guys. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Caitlin. I'm the Member Services Coordinator here at the Chamber. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the Maryland Department of Labor for putting on this presentation today. We're so excited to have you here virtually. We will be sending the recording afterwards. If you register for this webinar, you'll get an email as soon as we can. And as a disclaimer, this is a webinar, so everyone is muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to utilize either the Q&A option or the chat box. Also, just to kind of go over a few things we have up and coming at the Chamber, we do have some events scheduled for the rest of July. So we have our Women in Business Overcoming Imposter Syndrome event on July 21st from 12 to 1 p.m. We have a new member orientation being held on July 28th from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. We have a webinar on presenting with power employees on July 30th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then we also have a webinar entitled Stop Bleeding Money on Marketing, Using the 7 Elements of Story to Sell More. And we'll be opening registration for that event later today. So with that, I will pass things off to Teresa and we will go ahead and get started.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm grateful to Rick and Jen and Caitlin for inviting us to participate in today's webinar. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Next slide. Well, back to work, Shift for Success. We are in this together, and I'm grateful to be a part of the Frederick County team to assist our businesses as they shift for success. Next slide. Here's a brief agenda of what we will go over today, including the introduction, back to business pledge, the importance of returning to work, ramification of not returning to work, work share, as well as recruitment assistance. Next slide. Shift for Success, back to business. Are you ready to take the pledge? Businesses that adopt all safety guidelines are encouraged to take a back to business pledge, download and display at their business. You can take the pledge at this link, https://open.maryland.gov/back-to-business. Next slide. In this presentation, we've also included some general best practices for employers, for employees, and for visitors. These best practices include CDC and OSHA guidelines. I want employers to think about, are you communicating your policy to your employees and visitors regarding social distancing, signage? Are you sanitizing the high touch areas? There's a lot of great information in this best practice guide. Next slide. Moving on to the importance of returning to work. You may have some struggles with some employees in returning to work, but here are some thoughts to share. The larger unemployment check may be nice now, but a decision to stay home might be one you might regret later. The $600 supplement is a temporary benefit that expires on July 31st. Starting August 1st, your benefit will return to the normal amount allowed by your state. You may lose benefits like health insurance. You earn more at your job than just your paycheck. Though we don't usually quantify them, healthcare and retirement benefits are a part of your total compensation package. You may disqualify yourself from unemployment. Normally, you're supposed to accept suitable job offers while you're receiving unemployment. You can't reasonably argue that an offer to resume a job you already have isn't suitable. Next slide. You may put your employer in a tight spot. Under the Paycheck Protection Program, small businesses can apply for enough money to fund 8 weeks of their payroll costs. They can also use the money to pay for certain overhead expenses, including mortgage payments, rent, and utilities. These are loan funds that will be forgiven as long as employers meet certain requirements. By declining an offer to return to work, you will make it more difficult for your employer to qualify for loan forgiveness. At a minimum, your employer may try to replace you quickly, and you won't have the option to come back to your job later. More than the money. While there's no way to predict how the economy will respond in the next 3 to 6 months, it's highly likely that the employment picture will be unpleasant for the rest of the year. If going back to work now insulates you from a dreary job market later, it may be worth it, assuming you take the appropriate steps to stay safe and healthy. Next slide. Ramifications of not returning to work. So in normal times, the intent of the unemployment insurance program is to assist people during periods of unemployment when suitable work is not available. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. Department of Labor encourages flexibility to effectively comply with the government's social distancing recommendations and to mitigate the spread of the virus. In response, the Department of Unemployment Insurance enacted emergency regulations, which, among other things, altered the definition of suitable work. The regulations, which are effective from March 16th to June 14th, state as follows. In determining whether work is suitable, the department will consider whether a claimant has a condition that prevents the claimant from performing the essential functions of the job without substantial risk to the claimant's health and safety. For purposes of this section, condition means a request from an employer, a medical professional, a local health official, or any civil authority that the claimant or a member of the claimant's immediate family or household member be isolated or quarantined as a consequence of COVID-19, even if the claimant or claimant's immediate family or household member has not been actually diagnosed with COVID-19. However, if suitable work is available, the claimant has an obligation to properly apply for or accept offered work. A claimant may not refuse work because unemployment benefits are higher than the amount the claimant would earn from unemployment. Next slide. So what is an employer to do? If an employee refuses a recall to work or an individual refuses an offer, you must notify the Division of Unemployment Insurance within 15 days of the refusal in order for the division to consider whether the refusal will affect the individual's benefits. You can utilize a new online application to easily report return to work dates and job refusals. The applications can only be used by employers who have a valid Maryland account number and FEIN. Employers without the Maryland account number, such as federal employers and those who are out of state, may report job refusals and update return to work dates by emailing ui.bulkclaim@maryland.gov. The email must include company name, title, phone number for your contact at the company, full legal name of the employee or employees, and last 4 digits of the employee's social security number. If employers have any questions regarding the notification of this information, you can contact the Division of Unemployment at the College Park Claim Center, 301-313-8037, or the Towson Claim Center at 410-853-1713. These numbers are strictly for employers. Claimant inquiries will not be answered at these numbers. Next slide. So at this slide, this is a screenshot of what the new online process is, with a link to update or remove employees' return to work date and a link to report a job refusal. So it's pretty self-explanatory, and I love the fact that they have now created this online form for employers. Next slide. So in summary, some of the consequences of not returning to work: you may be ineligible for rehire by your employer. Your employer may need to hire additional employees to take your place, leaving you without a job. You may be ineligible to continue receiving unemployment insurance benefits covered by the CARES Act. Next slide. So even if you're not ready to return to work, I think it's important to consider how it could impact a future reference check. You might be hesitant to check off that box if, you know, it says, may we contact your current employer? I always want to check yes. But if you don't, it could impact your ability to secure that job down the road. Next slide. At this time, I'd love to introduce Anne-Marie Gunning, Program Manager for Business Services. Thank you, Anne, for handling WorkShare.
Hi, everyone. I'm kind of losing the connection, but I'm hoping I can still hear, everyone can still hear me. Can you hear me, Teresa?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about WorkShare, which is a great program to use to help businesses reopen their business and bring their employees back. So as Maryland prepares to reopen in the coming weeks and months, employers now have to determine how to bring their employees back. Some may choose a staggered approach. Others may reopen stores and bring back their entire workforce at once. This insight, known as WorkShare, proposes doing a little bit of both, bringing them back gradually, but also utilizing short-term compensation plan called WorkShare. Through WorkShare programs, employers are able to earn wages and unemployment benefits, including that $600 through the CARES Act. Employers traditionally use these programs to reduce hours in lieu of layoff. However, in today's world with COVID-19, the layoff and the furloughs have already happened. And this insight discusses using WorkShare program as a stepping stone to get employees back to work. So if employers are out, hello?
Yes, you're there.
You're there, okay. So if employers are looking at a way to bring people back as soon as possible and with the best scenario, they can possibly use WorkShare as an alternative to bring them back and just pay them a partial with no other compensation for the hours that they're missing. So instead of laying off employers or bringing them back just part-time, employers can retain their workforce by temporarily reducing the hours of work by dividing the available work between affected employees with the units, and employees will receive partial unemployment insurance benefits to supplement those wages. Next. So what are WorkShare benefits? Well, there are benefits for both the employer and the employee. So it definitely is a program that benefits both, not one or just one or the other. It's both of them. Employers are able to maintain productivity and quality service. So they're able to bring just enough people back to be functioning as a business to serve their customers at the level that they need to by bringing just who they need back, and also making sure they utilize WorkShare. They're able to retain their experienced employees. We all know that our biggest asset of our business is our employees, and those that have a little bit more experience bring along an extra benefit. So they're able to retain them. They're able to keep the morale high. A lot of times if we ask people to come back and they have to lose out on some type of monies, they would not want to come back, or that would make their morale low if they did come back. This, they're able to get more money using WorkShare than just staying home and being on unemployment. So the morale does kind of stay high. And in the WorkShare program, employer and the employer are working together to make this work on a contract. So it definitely brings them closer together and makes their morale stay high also. The flexibility to utilize WorkShare for the entire company or select units. So not everyone has to be on WorkShare. It can be just a unit or several people, or you could have multiple contracts going on to fit your business so that everybody is working the same percentage and also utilizing the WorkShare at the same percentage. And it can vary among different contracts. It enables the business to conserve on their payroll costs until business conditions improve. So the biggest part is salary and payroll. This way the employer is not putting all their money out to support salaries, especially when they're not back and fully open. They can utilize WorkShare to take advantage of of the times when they're not working, so that it doesn't overextend the business. Saves the expense and time of recruiting, hiring, and training new employees. As business owners, we all know that recruiting and hiring and training is one of the most costly processes we have to go through. With this, you don't have that because you're bringing your same people back. So there's no need to recruit more or hire or train because you already have your trained staff on site and working. And the most important that we tell people is for employers is, while shared work benefits are normally charged against an employer's unemployment insurance account, for claims filed between March 30th and December 20th of 2020, shared work benefits are completely federally funded. What does this mean? Well, the employer is not going to see their unemployment insurance count go up as a result of them using this program. It is completely federally funded. And that's a big win-win, because employers do not want to see any cost coming down the road when they're still in the improving process and still opening their doors and getting back to normal. So there are benefits for the employees also. They're able to keep their current job. So, I mean, I've been with my job for 30 years. So, and it's definitely an asset to stay with the same company. You feel more comfortable. You have tenure. You may have retirement. You may have other benefits that are built in where you're earning based on how many years you've been there. So keeping your current job can always be a benefit. You're able to continue to earn wages from your employer for hours worked, plus receive a prorated unemployment insurance benefits to supplement those lost wages. And until July 25th, you also are able to take advantage of that $600, often known as the 600 plus, which is called the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. So until July 25th, they'll also get that. So this is definitely a win-win, because if they did it the other way and just filed partial unemployment, chances are they would lose out on their unemployment insurance and the $600 and just be getting the part that their employer is paying them. Next. What are the requirements? Well, there are a few requirements. However, I've been told by our unemployment and work share agents that this is pretty easy process once you have the employer has it figured out and has everybody situated on their contract. You do need a minimum of 2 employees in the plan to make it work. You need to reduce the hours of everybody on that contract or the employee unit by 20 to 50%. So these are the numbers that you have to be reducing their hours. So that 20 to 50% is the percent that they're going to be on work share. And everybody has to be on the same percentage. Employers must reduce the percentage of work equally among a unit. However, this can vary between units. So you can have multiple contracts going, just everybody in the same unit or coming back and working the same amount of hours has to be on the same contract. The plan can be no longer than 26 weeks in a year per unit. It's not for employers to use for seasonal or cyclical shutdowns. However, it is used for times like now during COVID-19. Employers must be current with their unemployment insurance tax contributions. So we do need our employers to participate and that are participating to be in good standing with Maryland Department of Labor and unemployment insurance. Employees must have been working for the employer for at least 3 months. Now, this might be a little bit difficult because a lot of times people will get hired on at the beginning of the year, and we know this happened in March. So people might be a little short of their 3 months. And if so, unemployment is kind of working with you to make this work. And there are waiving some of the requirements so that this program can work for everyone. So that's one that they definitely are waiving. Employees who are full-time, part-time, exempt, salaried, or hourly are all eligible. Again, seasonal and temporary workers are not eligible. 1099 employees would not be eligible either. They have to be W-2 and have to be they have to have their unemployment taxes paid into. Employees must be eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits. So the employees must also be eligible for unemployment insurance and not have some type of penalty out there or disqualification. But as I mentioned earlier, there are some discretions and they're being a little lenient to some of the requirements that I mentioned above. So if anyone is interested and they're not sure how it's going to work because they might not be able to meet one of these requirements, still go ahead and request them to send you an application and to talk to someone in our work share unit, because they are being a little lenient with some of the requirements. Next. So what are the next steps if you're interested in using WorkShare to bring your employees back? Well, the employers must notify their employees and the bargaining agent, if there's a union, that they're applying for a WorkShare plan. It has to be agreement between the employer and the employee. They must request an application at ui.worksharing@maryland.gov and return this application within 7 to 15 days before they anticipate to use the WorkShare start date. And they'll return it at ui.worksharing@maryland.gov also. So we're asking if you just have one contract, you're just going to use one, generally we can get it turned around in 7 days. However, we do have quite a few businesses that have multiple contracts. We do have one, Kennedy Krieger uses it, and they have 30 contracts. So they have 30 different plans. And for the larger plans and more contracts, we would need definitely the 15 days to turn it around to approve it. So if you just have a contract that's small, we can turn it around in 7 days. However, for larger, more complex contracts, we would need 15. The employer will be notified of a decision within 15 calendar days of a receipt of the completed application. Again, we're turning this decision around a little earlier for easier contracts, like generally around a week. If approved, the employer must submit certification of hours worked on a weekly basis. So the employees will no longer be going through Beacon to file for that week. You'll be turning in this form at the end of every week. This simple form, which just requires the claimant's name, their social security number, their hours worked, and their signature. You'll be turning that in at the end of every week, and a WorkShare agent will be typing that manually in so that they will receive the payment from the WorkShare unit. For more information, please visit www.dllr.state.md.us/employment/work-sharing. There you'll be able to find some frequently asked questions that are answered that you might be having the same question. And you'll also be able to find out a little bit of additional information about how this will work for you. So one more thing I want to say is that, well, like I told you, we used to only have about 2 people a year on a contract. 2 companies, which was very low. It was a very underutilized program. So we revamped it and decided we wanted to turn it around to use it to bring people back as opposed to lay people off. Since then, since the whole COVID-19 started happening, we now have 217 employers and over 300 contracts going in. And I'm not going to lie, there was a couple that it might not have worked for, and it was too hard for them to do or to think. But overall, we have a 95% rating of complete. They're happy with the program. It's working for them. So it is working, and it's doing just what we wanted to do. It's helping alleviating some of that salary cost. It's helping employees receive the same compensation they would, and they don't have to give anything up. So it definitely is working where we need it to. And we're really happy to let people know that employers are, once they get that first contract going out, that first week, that's all they have to do is just have everybody sign it as long as it stays the same. Because it's a contract, it's a binding contract. There can't be any changes to it. You can modify it, but you would have to turn in a new contract. So it is pretty seamless, they say, and they have made it very easy. They're pretty much holding your hand and walking you through it to make it work for everyone. So if anyone is interested, I would advise you to reach out to Teresa Mena and let her know, and then we can turn you over to the WorkShare, and then you can get your application and see if it works for you. Next.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you for that great information.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question. I'm not sure if you know, does WorkShare impact the Paycheck Protection Program for employers?
So the WorkShare was kind of designed around the paycheck protection because our problem was people that received the Paycheck Protection Program were concerned about how am I going to bring my employees back because I have to use 75% on salary and bring them back? They have created, changed some of these rules with the payroll protection and extended the time and allowed like 24 weeks to get them back and allowed only 60% have to be used for salary. So they had changed some because it was such a problem. But this was meant to go along with the payroll protection. We've revamped it around that, like how to get employees back in that time frame. And this is exactly why, because employers were having such a struggle to bring people back, because employees were telling them they did not want to come back because they were making more money on unemployment with that $600. So this was meant to help those that were receiving the payroll protection payment, and really anybody, so that they could just bring people back and get them back to work as soon as possible.
And thank you so much for that wonderful information. So employers, are still having a hard time getting people back to work. There's always recruitment assistance, and you have many local and state resources available to assist you in that process. Next slide. You can utilize the Maryland Workforce Exchange. You may access job search and self-service options utilizing the Maryland Workforce Exchange. Instantly view any job posted to the web directly on your mobile phone or tablet. Simply search for MWE Jobs in Apple iTunes or Google Play App Store. And here's also a screenshot of what the Maryland Workforce Exchange provides. Employers can find candidates, there's education and training, job market trends, and labor force data. Next slide. So in these unprecedented times, a lot of the recruitment assistance is going to be virtually. So we can help you with virtual job fairs. After fully understanding your company needs, we can identify a highly qualified pool of talented candidates for your consideration. We minimize recruitment costs by advertising your recruitments for free, recruiting talent based on your specifications, screening applications to identify the most qualified, providing job readiness training at no cost to applicants, holding job fairs and providing venues for interviews, in addition to information about tax incentives, business demographics, employee commute patterns, occupational wages, and more. Next slide. So at the Maryland's American Job Centers, there's dedicated professionals to help you find the job you want. The staff there are leaders in using state-of-the-art technologies to match people with jobs and jobs of people. We offer many different services to assist veterans, transitioning military personnel, and other qualified individuals. We also offer assistance for justice-involved returning citizens that are part of the qualified pool of citizens who are ready and eager to work. Federal funding is available. Next slide. So at this slide, we have a map here of all the different counties. You can simply click on the county of your choice to find out more information about the services that help meet your employment needs. These are the American Job Centers that are located throughout the state of Maryland. Next slide. At this time, I'd like to introduce Teresa Spruill, our Veterans Representative for Frederick County. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa. So the Maryland American Job Centers have a priority of service for all veterans. All who have served received priority head of the line services for veterans. And through this program, we also provide specialized services for those individuals who may have had a barrier to employment. And there are many things that cause a barrier to employment. One of them being that they got out of high school, went into the military, and then came into the job force, and they've never applied for a job. So we work with these individuals to ensure that they're ready to come to work for you, that their resume, their interviewing skills are up to speed so that they're a good candidate for you to review. But also we help them learn how to articulate those skills that they learned in the military are valuable to you as an employer, and how they can transfer those skills to you and provide the services to you. We also partner with our WIOA partners and Veterans Administration to ensure individuals who are eligible for training programs such as on-the-job training, apprenticeship, or college programs or trade programs have those resources available to them to help them get into those programs and, again, help them get to your workforce. We have individuals who work with businesses, which is one of my roles, to help you identify those needs that you're having trouble filling and see if we can't find individuals from the veteran population who are going to be able to meet those needs for you. And remember, veterans come with a high teamwork attitude. That's how they have existed through their military time, and it's very valuable to transition into the civilian workforce. That's a great skill to bring with them. They also typically are punctual and they pay attention to detail. We'll be glad to assist you with any screening needs that you have or any placement needs. My team in Western Maryland has a distribution list of well over 1,000 individuals that they send job announcements out to every week, sometimes multiple times a week. So if you have a recruitment need and you let us know, we will be glad to make sure that people out there who are looking for work, who may or may not be currently employed, have that information available to them and that they can see your opportunity. And that's all I have from our angle. Thank you, Teresa. Back to you.
Thank you, Teresa. Next slide. And now we will continue with incumbent worker training. So you can utilize Maryland Business Works, and I'll have Anne Marie Gunning discuss this further.
So as Teresa mentioned earlier, you may have employees that do not come back, and your workforce might look a little bit different with having maybe a shortage in some of your areas because people might not have come back. So you may have to move your workforce around and maybe promote some people up and bring in new employees to take their place. So a program that we have is Maryland Business Works, where you can take advantage of us helping you with training your already existing employees and getting them additional training to help fill some gaps that you might have in your workforce. So what is Maryland Business Works? It is a business engagement that we use to help employers retain and grow and expand and help with layoff aversion. The Maryland Business Works it works with small businesses with 500 employees or less. And what it does is that if they're interested in receiving some type of training, we will go ahead and help with supporting that training. There's a $1 match requirement. We pay up to $4,500 per person to have them trained. And this training can be an in-house training, it can be classroom-based training, it can be apprenticeship, as long as it's training that is going to help them grow within your company and maybe earn a credential or a certification, something that is specific to them that's going to help them move up within the company. So this is definitely a great benefit, as our workforce in each employer may look a little different, and we have to move people around and might need additional training to fill some of the gaps. So again, it's $4,500 per person or $40,000 per employee. We match, and you would have to match the employer would have to match. And it's a reimbursement, so they would have to put the money up front. And before you take advantage of doing this, we ask that you do the application and get our approval first. We do not go ahead and pay for training that already happened. We have to approve it first and go over it to make sure that it is something that we're willing to fund. And then once we approve it, you will put the employer will pay the money, and then we will reimburse them after we get some additional information back. So it is a great program to help create a talent pipeline within your company and help support your needs, as we might have to move employees around to fill some of the gaps in our business needs.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anne.
You're welcome. And then there is an application. You can visit the website at the bottom, which is labor.maryland.gov/employment/MBW. If you go visit that, it will give you the application and some more instances of how this can work for you, and it will tell you the do's and don'ts. And then you would put your application submit it back to the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning through the website DLWDAL, Business Services labor@maryland.gov. They are going to send this presentation out since that is a little bit difficult of an email. But just go ahead and submit it, and we're pretty good. As long as you give us about 3 weeks out, we're able to turn it around and get the approval back and let you know if we're going to fund that training. Thank you, Teresa.
Oh, thank you. I have the application and I could send the file electronically. So you will see my email address shortly. And please reach out if you have any questions. Next slide. So there's so many partners that are invested in our community, and I have to say I love working with this team in Frederick County, especially Frederick County Workforce Services. So I have once again the honor of introducing Patty McDonald. Next slide. Thank you, Patty, for taking over.
Thanks, Teresa. And I'd like to say thanks to our partners at Maryland Department of Labor and the Chamber for including us in this outreach and webinar. As always, we also appreciate your partnership. So for those who may not already know us, Frederick County Workforce Services is a resource for Frederick County businesses to connect with the local workforce. And that could look in a number of different ways, and we have a number of cost-free resources that businesses can take advantage of. Most often, that looks like recruitment support. So our recruitment support is highly customized, so it really does depend on what the employer needs. And it could be anything from posting and promoting an opportunity to our subscriber lists, which at this point are approaching about 10,000 individuals at a minimum. Or it could be direct referral of screened candidates, depending on what the business needs. And then similarly to the Maryland Business Works program that Ann just described, Frederick County Workforce Services also has an incumbent worker support program that offers a 50% reimbursement for training existing employees. So that's one that a lot of businesses have taken advantage of, especially when unemployment was a little bit lower and employing or training current employees became a priority. So a third thing that we do is offer a tremendous amount of workforce insight, not just around what the local labor market looks like, but also around general HR topics and connections to other community organizations that might help with pipeline development. So I would invite and encourage anyone to visit us on our website, which is listed there on the slide, as well as connect with us on social media. We do put a lot of information out there as well. You can connect with any one of our business services reps, and we will work with you one-on-one to develop a solution through Workforce Services. And we work very closely with our partners at DOL, so there is no wrong door for any of these services that are described today. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. That's all great information. I know businesses that have utilized both Frederick Business Works and Maryland Business Works. It's one or the other, but not both, but it's valuable information. Next slide. And here are some additional resources that may help your business. The Hiring Job Board, our social media links for Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, as well as the Commerce COVID-19 resource page at businessexpress.maryland.gov. Next slide. I've included our contact information. So if you have any questions, you have everyone's email address and you can reach out to us. Since we're not in the office, we're gonna have to answer you via email, or we'll reach out to you when we get your communication. Next slide. And that concludes our presentation. If there's any questions, I believe there was a question in the chat box.
Yep, so we did have a question earlier at the beginning of the presentation. So the question was in relation to, I believe, health conditions Is there a requirement of providing documentation from a health professional?
I'll answer this. So yes, if your employer does let someone know, or you even yourself as a claimant indicate that you refused a job offer or refused to go back to work, unemployment will adjudicate that issue. So they'll create an issue on your claim, so that way they can review and ask, ask you little questions like, why did you refuse, and what it's related to. And yes, you will have to provide documentation from, right now I think it's 2 doctors verifying that you're not able to return. And it could be because of your own health, or you caring for someone that's in not well health, or that might have a compromised immune system. But they will ask for medical documentation.
Awesome, thank you. As a follow-up question, does lack of childcare qualify as something that can refuse a job offer?
Again, they will have to, we have noticed that a lot of daycares are going back to work. They are opening. However, they are social distancing and they're not the full capacity. So unemployment will have you verify, and they may ask you to go to your original daycare provider to get some information or a note saying that they do not have room for your child at that daycare. And they were debating how to do this, whether it would be multiple, you would have to check into multiple daycare sites, but there will be some type of proof that you have to provide to unemployment insurance for them to adjudicate that issue, to determine if you could still take advantage of unemployment and be on there and refuse with good cause.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? I actually have a question for a business. If there's any business that's willing to answer via the chat box or live, do you think WorkShare is something you will apply for within the next week or so? I know I have a few businesses out in Howard and Carroll that will probably be utilizing this resource in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so while everyone's taking their answer, I just wanted to take a second again to thank everybody from the Maryland Department of Labor for putting on this excellent presentation. As we mentioned a couple times at the beginning and before, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar as well as a PDF of the slides. So that way you have access to all the emails, the links, and the resources that Teresa and the gang have provided today. So if there are no more questions, we can go ahead and get working on sending that stuff out to you.
Thank you so much. I just want to once again thank my partners, Anne-Marie Gunning, Teresa Sproul, Patty McDonald, the Chamber, Jen and Caitlin. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for putting on today's event.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.